All right, I'll go just do the intro, and then yeah, we'll just go through it, just nice and easy.
Sounds good.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 56 of the Snake in the Draft podcast. In this episode, I have Drew O coming on. You should be following on Twitter at DF Bean Counter. He's the creator of the Bulletproof Prospect series, and you can check out his work on Patreon by going to patreon.com/DFBcounter. And that's Bean Counter. I just said that wrong. So today we're going to be continuing the series over the 2021 rookie class outlook, and now we can work on our player evaluations of the rookies. So welcome, Drew. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you come on. You're the first person that is what I'd call someone who's on the analytics side of the film versus analytics debate, which honestly, I think we could both agree that it's maybe a little bit of both. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit, but probably you're definitely way heavier analytics side, correct?
I would think that would be correct, yeah. A pioneer on the show here.
I know, right? And I personally go towards analytics in that I am more of a numbers person. That's always made more sense to me. I think numbers are harder to some people that are listening to this that like film will rip me to shreds, but I think numbers are a little bit harder to like trick yourself into thinking that it's something that it's not. And we'll get into this more before I keep talking about stuff I don't know a ton about, because Drew's the expert here about analytics. But one question I ask every guest, which is, what is one hobby that you really enjoy doing that does not relate to fantasy football?
It's a tough question. I don't really have hobbies anymore. My life is pretty much kids, work, and fantasy football nowadays.
Yeah.
I used to be a bit of a movie buff, though, so I'll go with that one.
Okay, what's any recent movies you've liked? Because I've been trying to find some more recent movies or just anything.
You know what? Strangely enough, my wife and I have been watching the Jurassic Park series over again because my son is getting old enough to get into it. He's not old enough to watch those movies, but he got our interest peaked in it again, so we're rewatching it. We just finished the second one last night. So,
okay, nice. Yeah, oh man, I'm gonna get ripped apart for this. I don't think I've ever just sat down and watched the Jurassic Park, like the originals. I've seen the newer ones, but I have not just sat down and watched the originals. So I feel like you're gonna tell me I need to go do that like ASAP, like right after this.
Yeah, we should actually just pause it and you go right now.
Okay, yeah. So 3 hours later, probably longer than that, but that's awesome, dude. Yeah. So let's go into like the player evaluation side of things. So if anyone follows you on Twitter, they know big analytics guy. You do great threads also, I want to say. That's something that I really enjoy is reading through threads, because I feel like it shows so much more. And honestly, like everybody jokes around the interaction side of Twitter and that threads don't get as much as the quick one-up saying something does, but it just provides so much value. So do you also utilize film in your evals, and what's your process for evaluating players?
I don't watch football from a film perspective. I have no knowledge of what to look for even. I do consider film though. Like, I don't think that it's a black box and has no value by any stretch. I tend to rely on, the film community to tell me who is good and who isn't.
Yeah.
I use analytics more from a cast your net perspective. So I want to figure out which players have the highest probability chance of being successful in the NFL. And then I use the opinion of film people to tell me who's the best of my tier. So if I have 6 bulletproof players that all have, roughly the same odds of success, and then I have all the film community telling me, well, that guy's actually the worst one. I'm not going to put him at the top of the list then. He's going to be at the bottom.
Nice.
Or they're all telling me that's the best one, so he's going to probably be at the top of my list.
Yeah, so thinking back to one of your more recent posts about like the running backs. So that would mean, I think it was like Cam Akers, Swift, Dobbins, and JT were your bulletproof prospects from 2020. Correct me if I'm wrong. But with that, you probably had like JT number 1 because, the film people were saying he's number 1. And I bet he looked great on analytics standpoint as well, right?
I had JT at number. Okay, so we'll split it into pre-draft and post-draft. Pre-draft, I had D'Andre Swift was my number 1. Like, he's in a different tier than everyone else, in my opinion. And then I had 3 players, Akers, JT, and Dobbins, basically all in the same tier. I didn't have a strong preference between one or the other. They were all the same guy to me. At that point, I didn't really have a rank. I didn't care who was ahead of whom. After the draft, I actually bumped Akers to my 101, and it had nothing to do with film people telling me that JT was better or Akers was worse or Akers was better. It had everything to do with the situation. And the LA Rams situation, I felt like, was easily the best situation for any of the running backs to land into. So I just put him at number 1. And the thing that I find, it's funny you bring up Jonathan Taylor. I really like Jonathan Taylor. Like I think he's a good player.
Are you sure, Drew? Because from what I see on Twitter, you hate the dude. No, I'm just playing.
That's the thing. It seems like everyone else thinks he's this once in a lifetime type prospect. And like he had like the stuff that I look at, he is no better than any of Dobbins or Akers. They're all exactly the same. So I appear a hater, but I'm really not. I really like him. He's a very good running back. He's just no different than Akers or Dobbins.
Yeah, and I think honestly, like the whole generational talk, like it doesn't matter for fantasy football.
No, not at all.
That's just how I look at it. And whenever I see it, I'm just like, guys, it's not that important. We can look at stats about anybody and we can find great moments and we can find bad moments. Like, let's all like it's not super important. But I mean, you must be feeling great about Cam Akers then now with, this sort of end of season with the snap shares going up, going into 2021.
I mean, relieved is maybe the best way to put it. I honestly expected this to happen by like week 3. Like I just didn't think Darrell Henderson was an obstacle, and I thought Malcolm Brown was exactly what he is. He's just a guy.
Yep.
And then Akers got hurt, and things went off the rails. And then finally, towards the end of the season, they're like, okay, Cam Akers, you get to carry the ball all the time now, and he's been pretty excellent in his small samples throughout the season, and he's been really good at the end of the season. So I'm feeling relieved.
Awesome. Yeah. So going a little bit off topic, what is your favorite book that you've read or books?
My favorite book, I really like the Dan Brown series, like the Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown and those types of books. I like ones that are clever and kind of adventure-y, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I got kind of a weird one for you. I found this book series called The Utterly Uninteresting and Unadventurous Tales of Fred, the Vampire Accountant.
Okay.
I'm a CPA, so I was looking for a book, like a novel about something about accounting, just so that I could say that there is one. And I came across this and I was like, what a ridiculous title. Like, this thing must be terrible. So I downloaded the preview and I read the first, 15 pages or whatever they gave you. And I was like, this is pretty fun. It's like this crazy book about vampires and werewolves and zombies and wizards and witches and whatever, like all the fairyland creature stuff.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Like, this guy who wrote it, his name's Drew Hayes, which is, he's got a great first name. So it's already starting off on the right foot. But like the way that he writes is just, it's enthralling. Like it's fantastic. I have no other words for it. It's fantastic.
All right, I'll have to add that to the list. One book series I'm reading right now, which actually Kane from Twitter, Debbie Kane recommended, was the Culper Ring series by Brad Meltzer. Okay. Halfway through the first book, and it's definitely interesting. I've been having the weirdest sleep schedule where I get ready to go to bed around 11, and then I end up reading a book till 12, and then going to bed. And it's been funky for me recently. I'm used to going to bed at 9 p.m. I'm an old grandpa. So, but yeah, it's a very interesting series. He did a way better job explaining it. It's pretty much, there's this Culper ring, which is this ring that helped George Washington back in the Revolutionary days, and they're still trying to help the president type of thing. That's sort of the very vague synopsis, which I'm not even that far into it, but so far it's good. And I like that you read a chapter in 2 minutes. The chapters are 8 pages, which is actually pretty nice. Yeah,
it gives you an easy spot to stop, right?
Yeah, it does. It really does. I will say they do have some, those little cliffhangers, so that makes you read a couple more chapters in. But anyways, going back to fantasy football, one of my favorite Twitter threads that you did stated you only draft players with a track record of success in college, and then you only keep those that impress as rookies, no exceptions. So with this process, I really like that you use ADP. Are there any 2020 rookies that you have as a sell going into 2021? So potential options could be Jalen Reagor, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerry Jeudy, Tua, Henry Ruggs, Zach Moss, all those guys are some names that everybody's thinking about that they've disappointed them. So are any of those names sounding like players to move on from now just based on their value change?
Let's talk about all of them. So first up, I guess this all kind of starts with my process, right? Like my prospect grades. So these players like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I gave him a maybe grade last year. I'm currently actually revamping the way that I'm doing the running back grades. He's going to end up a coin flip, which so let me back up for a second. I give players a grade, and that grade kind of indicates their likelihood of success. So there's bulletproof players. They're like 70 to 80% success rates. And then I have coin flips, which is around 40 to 50%. And then I have maybe players, which are around 30%, 25 to 30. And then I have bust players, which are in like the 10 to 15% hit rate kind of zone. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, last year I gave him a maybe, but this year it looks like in my new process, he's going to end up with a coin flip. So he's, 50-50 chance of hitting a top 12 season at running back. I actually liked what he did this year. I thought he was way better than I was expecting. His ADP to begin with was absurd. He was like a top 10 pick straight out of the gate. His ADP was actually comparable to Saquon Barkley's as a rookie.
That's nuts.
Completely bananas. That's one of the reasons I was completely out on Jonathan Taylor. His wasn't far from Saquon Barkley either. So anyways, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think he's fine. I don't think he's going to be a superstar by any means, but I think he's a fine running back. The ADP would suggest he's terrible, but that's because his ADP was inflated to begin with. We're going to skip Jalen Reagor. Sorry, I didn't mention that to begin with. We're talking about one of my guys, or he was anyway. Jerry Jeudy, I thought he was a fine prospect. He's roughly equivalent of Devonta Smith. They're okay. They're not bad. They're not good. They're okay. And his rookie season indicates he's okay. Nothing outrageous. His ADP will probably fall into that roughly the same as last year kind of range. So nothing to really glean from the wisdom of the crowd on that one. Henry Ruggs, he was a terrible prospect, and he had a terrible rookie season, and I have no interest in rostering him anywhere. I would be selling him for anything I could get. If I get a third-round pick for him right now, I'd do it in a heartbeat. This class is stacked. Third-round picks are going to be valuable, and he ain't it. Zach Moss, I don't mind Zach Moss as a prospect. I had him roughly the same as David Montgomery. We just saw David Montgomery go off at the end of this season. Zach Moss has that potential, I think. He's not in the echelon of Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers, or J.K. Dobbins, but he's okay. If he ends up in the right situation with a bunch of volume, he'll probably do all right. But from an ADP trends perspective, I suspect he's probably going to lose a little bit of value, which means the wisdom of the crowds are not going to be in his favor. I'd be fine moving him for market value wherever he's at. So I skipped two. One was Jalen Reagor. I want to quickly talk about Jalen Reagor because I've been developing this new process for sophomore players. They're for like rookies that have played their rookie season, essentially extending their rookie grade. And it's called, I just been doing sophomore comps. So I take the rookie grade for me, like my prospect grade on them, plus a couple different metrics like PFF grade and fantasy points per game and ADP trend. And I pull up their players that all kind of in that same range. When I do that for Jalen Reagor, it's kind of scary. Not scary, but not good. His best comp would be Tyler Boyd, which is, a couple top 24 finishes, probably no top 12s. And then it's Brandon LaFell, Michael Floyd, N'Keal Harry, Will Fuller, Paul Richardson, and Marquis Lee. So not exactly a who's who of fantasy producers. If I can get out of Jalen Reagor right now, I'm doing it. I've been telling my patrons to be selling him for Julio Jones or some other veteran. So here's the other thing. In that thread, I had talked about selling, drafting players, holding them, hoping they hit a home run. If they don't, you move on. That's kind of my philosophy. I don't typically re-roll into the rookie draft, though. I find that's really hard to do. People are smart enough to not trade. They saw Jalen Reagor was a first-round pick last year, and now they're like, maybe not going to give you a first, that's for sure. You could maybe get a second. But I just flipped the veterans at that point. I'm like, you know what? If you don't want Jalen Rieger, you're not going to give me a first. Give me Julio Jones. He's worth a late first. Let's do that. And that often will get it done. Or you maybe add a little to Rieger, like Rieger in a third to get Julio or something along those lines. Doesn't have to be Julio, obviously. I'm just using that as an example.
I think that's a great example because it's very doable as a trade. Honestly, I heard that and I was like, I could actually see teams, being like, you know what? Why not? Because Julio struggled to finish the year with the hamstring, this and that, but he's still an amazing, talented player that could finish as a top, what would you say, probably 8 wide receiver next year, maybe even higher?
Top 5. If you look at his per game metrics, not like his fantasy points per game, well, his fantasy points per game, but once you eliminate those games that he left early, he was a top 3 wide receiver, I think, last year.
All right.
His yards per run was still exceptional. His everything was still exceptional. The only thing that happened was he got hurt. And everyone's down on him, and I'm scooping him up everywhere.
Yeah, that's a great call, and that's something that I think some of those, like, there's definitely going to be vets, especially like once we get probably 2-3 months into the off season, so like right around March, everybody's gonna be looking at age a lot more than they probably should be, and giving discounts that people right now are like, there's no way you'll get a discount on Travis Kelce. Just wait, everybody. Just wait. Wait until we're middle of the 2021 season and Pitts is over Kelce in almost everybody's rankings. Just wait. It's coming. Don't be too surprised. So I love that you mentioned, sell for an actual vet. Don't sell for the rookie picks. I think that's a great call, honestly. So there was one player, Tua, that you haven't talked about yet. Do you have any thoughts on Tua?
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on Tua. So this whole sophomore comp thing is all based around, we need to compare apples to apples, right? So when I'm doing prospecting, I'm looking at age 18 production versus age 18 production, age 19 versus age 19, age 20 versus age 20. As you get older, the thresholds get higher because I expect that the players will do better as they're the older players. So when we look at rookie performance, what a lot of people get hung up on is Tua versus, I don't know, veteran X. And they're like, oh, he's terrible. Like, he didn't do well at all. And it's like, well, I mean, Tua's a rookie, though. Like, we have to compare him to rookie seasons. He shouldn't be compared to 10-year veterans. He should be compared to other rookies. How did he perform? So when you look at, when I was trying to come up with the sophomore comps for quarterbacks, a couple of things that stood out for me were the PFF grades. They actually had very good correlation to future success, which probably doesn't come as much of a shock. So when you look at Tua in the lens of rookie year PFF grades, so I went back all the way to the beginning of PFF and plotted all the rookie quarterback grades so I can compare Tua to other rookies. If I only compare him to first-round picks, he had a completely mediocre rookie year, which is not alarming. It's completely fine. His rookie year grade, I believe, was 20th out of 42 first-round picks. That's not bad. That's completely normal. In fact, if you were going to fade Tua based on that, you would also be fading guys like Andrew Luck and Josh Allen. Kyler Murray was worse. Cam Newton was slightly better. Deshaun Watson was slightly better. Carson Wentz was slightly better. Like, these are all guys within like 3 or 4 PFF grades. So like Tua had a 65.4. Deshaun Watson had a 68.1. He only played 4 games, but this is based on a per play basis, so it doesn't matter how many games he played. Like, he was fine. He just didn't have production. He didn't have production, in my opinion, because his supporting cast is terrible. I don't like anybody on that team. So
everybody that likes Mike Gesicki just cussed you out right there. I think
you guy.
Yeah, I like that. And that, he is middle of the road, which is not bad. A lot of people are like, no, I want the guy on the upper end, but middle of the road for rookies, fine, and his value is tanked.
Yeah.
He's very, very affordable. So I guess you're trying to acquire Tua wherever you can as well in like Superflex leagues, right?
For sure. I want to touch on one more because it's kind of telling as well. The other metric that I've been using so far has been PFF QB rating, which is different than their grade. Tua is actually 12th out of 42 in PFF rating among rookie first-round picks since, 2005 or whenever they began. So that's, like, really good. That's substantially better than a lot of the guys I mentioned before. His closest comparable when you combine the two, I believe, was Kyler Murray. He was virtually identical to. Kyler Murray obviously has more rushing upside, which is why he was a much more valuable fantasy asset. But from a throwing perspective, like Kyler Murray wasn't a terrible quarterback throwing the ball.
Yeah.
Andrew Luck was actually substantially worse in quarterback rating. He only had a 76.5. Tua had an 87.1. So like his rookie year isn't good, but it's not bad.
Yeah, and they also have so many picks to build around him. And I mean, everybody sort of talked about, Deshaun Watson, what's going to happen. I don't expect anything to really come out of this. And I expect Tua to be the dude and probably, what would you speculate? Probably a wide receiver early on or maybe an O-lineman for the Dolphins?
I surely hope that it's going to be Jamar Chase. Is
okay.
For anything else, I think is a colossal mistake.
Okay, so hoping for a wide receiver, which honestly, like we think about any of this, like that instantly bumps Tua up for most people just because he gets a top end option. And then, Parker and Williams and Gesicki will get a slight bump down, but and then the running back's a very, very big toss up. They could get pretty much anybody probably in the second round if they wanted to, honestly. So yeah, I like that. So yeah, Tua, don't panic, stay. Honestly, anybody, if you can get him in a startup, which I bet you can, like after, what would you say, Drew? Like probably after QB 12, like really comfortably take him after QB 12, like all day?
Oh, easily. I think he's going around like QB 20 in the startup I just did.
That's crazy. Like that's nuts. So yeah, Tua, buy him up. Rieger, I love the Julio move. All the others, like Drew was saying, more middle of the road, as in like good options for what they offer you. So going off topic again, Drew, what's your favorite? Yeah, go ahead.
Before we move on from that, when I was saying those guys are all middle of the road, those are guys I want to throw back anyway. Like they're not superstars, so I don't want them anymore. If they're superstars, they would have showed it. They would have been Justin Jefferson or T. Higgins or CeeDee Lamb or those types. Those are the guys I want to get out of the rookie draft. If I don't get that, I'm throwing them back. If I can get another rookie pick to redraw, I'll do it. If I can't, I'll just throw them back for a veteran and hopefully win my league that year.
Okay, so sort of recycle the guys like Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Zach Moss, and then what about Clyde Edwards-Helaire though? With him, like with his production,
it totally depends on what his cost is. Like the appeal of what his situation was that drove him up to that absurd original ADP is still there. Like he's still playing with Patrick Mahomes, but if I still have to pay top 10 pricing on him, I'm probably not. If I can get him for a reasonable like RB 15 to 20, then yeah, of course I'll buy him because he's in a good situation. I think he is a good running back. I don't think that he's necessarily a top of the heap running back individually. So yeah,
that makes sense to me. And so yeah, take that advice as you will. And I do recommend, like I think even for me, like Marquise Brown is another guy that, everybody's starting to go back on, like a Jalen Reagor, Marquise Brown, Henry Ruggs. Those guys are three guys that I think a lot of people still have moderate value for them. And you can get probably an early 2021 second for almost all of them, I'd say probably now.
I think so, yeah.
And that's a move you would make all day, especially with how deep the wide receiver class is.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, Marquise Brown, like he's got certain appeal. Like I think he's got it's kind of funny to say with the type of wide receiver he is, but I think he's got like a high seasonal floor. Like I think he's a good wide receiver that's going to be on the field and he's going to get those long touchdowns here and there, which is going to give him like a probably wide receiver 2 floor-ish. This year didn't work out, but somewhere around there long term. But I don't see him ever being like a fantasy league winning wide receiver just based on his size alone. Like he's tiny, which you just don't see guys that size be that successful. You can see them in that wide receiver 2 range, but you just usually don't see them any higher than that.
Yeah, now you got BMI Twitter all over you now. So look what you're doing. No, I'm just playing. Let's change gears, talking about favorite sci-fi series.
I don't know that I'm really a sci-fi guy per se.
Anything.
This movie came out a couple years ago. I was on parental leave when my daughter was born, and the movie theaters here, they have Mummy and Me movies every, gotta forget, Tuesdays or Wednesdays or something during the day. So we'd go and she'd nap and I'd watch a movie. And this movie had come out that year called Alita Battle Angel. I never heard of it. It was the one that they were showing, so I went, and it was awesome. We actually ended up going the next week to the same movie because it was so good.
That's awesome. I'll have to check it out because, like I said, I'm looking for some movies because this is the last week before school starts back up for me, and then obviously everything just gets way too crazy. But all right, I'm adding that to the list. Now talking about, we talked about it a little bit, sort of hinted at it, the 2021 rookie class outlook. So where do you see it, like a very large tier break in Superflex rookie drafts with how you expect the current class to shake out, which we actually should know, like it's what, within a week, we should have everybody committed to the NFL draft, right?
Yeah, I think it's around there.
Okay.
I don't really have a great answer for you on this one because I don't know how to word this appropriately. I stick to my process pretty rigidly. I don't really know about tier breaks per se, unless like last year there was a very clear tier break at wide receiver or at running back 5, right? Like after Clyde Edwards Clyde Edwards, everybody else's first, my 5th. But after him, I didn't care about any other running backs. It was a very clear cutoff. So I can give you that kind of cutoffs. So for quarterback, I have 3 quarterbacks I really like. I think most people do. I have a 4th that I'm kind of into, and I have 2 that I'm completely not interested in. Mac Jones out of Alabama and Kyle Trask are just not my guys. So I'll be passing on them. But the other 4 guys I'm very into to varying degrees. Trey Lance, he's a wild card. He only played 1 season. It's hard to know exactly, and it was at a low level. So if you can get him for the right price, it's a great dice roll. But I don't have any.
Be like a early to mid 2021 second for you. Is that what you consider the right price?
Trey Lance? Oh, I'd probably take him around the late first somewhere.
Late first, okay, nice.
Yeah, his rushing upside is going to be pretty appealing. So. Yeah, if you can't throw very well, I'll take that.
Nice. And those first 3, I'm guessing, are like Wilson, Fields, and Lawrence.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not to say that Trey Lance can't throw very well. I just mean we don't really know. We only saw him play for 1 year. So if he can throw really well, he's like Kyler Murray all over again, except for way bigger.
Gotcha. What do you think about like the running backs, wide receivers, maybe even potentially tied in with Pitts?
So running backs, this is a really weak class. This is very similar to 2019's running back class. There's probably one guy that's going to be kind of appealing, like Josh Jacobs was that year. And then, Travis Etienne, maybe, I don't know. He kind of had a down year as far as what I've seen so far. Najee Harris is an old prospect that didn't really do anything until his last year and a half, 2 years. I don't like a lot of my running back processes actually comes in the draft season. So I don't really know yet. I can make some educated guesses based on some other metrics that aren't very predictive, but the ones that are predictive, I don't have them yet. So I can't really give you a good answer.
That's okay. We'll have to have you come on later then, or actually everybody just follow you on Twitter. That's what needs to happen. So wide receivers though, I feel like it's just super deep.
Wide receivers is special this year. I have 3 wide receivers in this class that I would have had at wide receiver 1 last year. And last year was a really good class. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited about wide receivers. And then it's not just top end. I have another 4 or 5 that would be in the same tier as the T. Higgins and Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb guys. Like this class is unbelievable.
Nice. So I'm just sort of trying to, and obviously I'm putting you in a hole or pigeonholing you a little bit with you saying, your running backs aren't complete, but I'm guessing you would have like 3 quarterbacks and like 3 wide receivers in that first 6 with maybe a running back sneaking in there slightly. But that's like that first, like half of the first round is, and we're talking super flex here, quarterbacks and wide receivers is probably what you're predicting, right?
For me, yeah, I don't think it'll go that way. I think we'll have 2 or 3 running backs in there as well. And I'll get to take the guys that I actually like a little later, which is always fun.
Yeah, and I feel like you're making a great point in that it's something I've been thinking about a lot more with the running backs with, they're always going to be drafted higher typically than they should be related to like what we see on analytics or even from film perspective, just because the running back position is seen as these league winner types. So they're going to be pushed up. So maybe trade back a little bit in the first round to get more picks, more value. One other question, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, would you rank him above all these running backs in this class? I actually shouldn't even ask you that question because you haven't even done everything yet because it's not that time.
Well, I like I said, I don't have the most predictive stats yet, but I do have some stuff that I've looked at. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I believe, will be in the same tier as, or maybe a little bit higher than guys like Najee and Etienne.
Okay.
Javonte Williams, I'm not sure where he's going to fall yet. He's a total wild card. I don't know enough about him yet.
All right, sweet.
He could actually end up in my bulletproof tier. The other two, I don't think will make it there.
Well, that's exciting, everybody. So stay tuned on the bulletproof tier. So just a general dynasty question. Who is one player that you're trying to roster in every dynasty you're in? Some examples for myself is like Irv Smith Jr., players of that fashion that I'm just pretty excited about. So who are your guys or guy?
Well, I'm with you on Irv. He was one of my bulletproof tight ends a few years ago. So I like him a lot.
Way to make me feel better.
Hey, we're in this together, man. Same boat. So this is a player that I wouldn't have normally said because I didn't love him when he came out last year, but it's Brandon Ayuk. He is – I had him in the coin flip tier. The coin flip tier will also have guys like Jerry Jeudy and Devonta Smith this year, whom a lot of people think I hate Devonta Smith based on what I've been putting on Twitter. I don't hate Devonta Smith. I hate Devonta Smith compared to Jamar Chase. That's
Drew,
why I hate Devonta Smith.
Anytime you say a player doesn't meet the certain tier or something, that means you hate him. Like that's how it works, dude. It's you can't speak bad about a player or say people's expectations are overblown without people coming in at you pretty hard.
Yeah. So my wide receiver wide receiver sophomore comp list in 2020, I've already put them up on Patreon for all the patrons, but I'll just give you a quick sneak peek at Brandon Ayuk's. So he has kind of a weird profile to begin with, but the players that he most comps to after his rookie season are Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Juju Smith-Schuster, and A.J. Brown. So I really like Brandon Ayuk going forward. I'm concerned about just the offense in general and his place in it, but I think he's a really good player at the very least. And to give you some perspective on these sophomore comps, one that is probably the most surprising, last year I was all over Twitter, all over everything that I could be all over, telling everyone that Terry McLaurin was not a good buy. I was 100% wrong. I failed across the board on that. And that's really what drove the sophomore comps, because I wanted to figure out which of these players that had poor profiles did enough as a rookie to convince me otherwise. Once I put Terry McLaurin into the sophomore comp thing, this is who he comes out with. Percy Harvin, Michael Thomas, Antonio Brown, Marcus Colston, Dwayne Bowe, Tyreek Hill, Doug Baldwin, Steve Smith, Andrew Hawkins, and Stephon Diggs. Like, I was 100% wrong. I did everything possible that I could to get it wrong last year with Terry McLaurin. And after seeing what he did this year and then looking at what Brandon Ayuk's comps are, I want all the Brandon Ayuk.
Nice. And I like that call because Ayuk, his value hasn't increased a ton in relation to just, like Debo, he missed a good bit of the season. We had Kittle miss like the whole season. And then, like you mentioned, the situation with the quarterback is up in the air. It's a very run-heavy team. I'm going to actually put you on the spot a little bit here with your I made a trade, and it doesn't involve Ayuk, but it involves Debo in that I traded away Debo. Man, I'm blanking on it right now. It was Debo, Mooney, and Austin Hooper, and I received Amari Cooper, JJ Taylor, and Guyton, and this is like a 12-team Superflex PPR, very small tight end premium. What do you think about that?
Sorry, can you say those players again?
Yes, Debo. So I traded away Debo, Mooney, and Hooper, and I received Cooper, Amari Cooper, JJ Taylor, and Guyton.
I love it. Nailed it. Way rather have the Amari Cooper side.
There we go. That's what we need in this world. It's just validation, man. I appreciate you. Definitely felt good because, it's sort of that 2-for-1 thing. And honestly, I mean, a lot of people love Mooney, and I feel like his ADP is going to be elevated higher than it should be. Just in relation, like if Allen Robinson leaves, what does that team have?
Yeah, so Mooney's an interesting one. Mooney actually, I can't remember exactly. I think he might have been a BPP player, like a bulletproof wide receiver pre-draft. But when he felt, I think he was a 5th-round pick, that just knocks him into the bust here because everyone in the third day, like every day 3 pick is there's no good odds on the third day.
I feel like you're talking about Hakeem Butler right there.
Hakeem Butler was a bust to begin with, and then he fell to day 3, which really made him a bust. So,
all right,
slightly different situation. But yeah, Mooney, I don't know. He's fine. He's never going to be a game changer. Amari Cooper is at least he is a wide receiver 2 floor at the very least, and he is an outside shot at a wide receiver 1 season. So why not?
Yeah, he just needs Dak to, be there next year. That's honestly, and I have Dak in that league too, so it's the stack right there. So, this is my pride and joy. I did a productive struggle. I have like the 1.01, 1.02. So it's going to be an exciting little draft year. But honestly, guys, it's not every league. There was one league I started out the season. I was using Dynasty Nerds Contender and Dynasty Rankings. I was 14th in both. So that wasn't good either. So it happens, everybody. Don't be too sad if you're in one dynasty league and it falls apart. It happens. So to finish this out, though, who are some players that you think are going to be under the radar for May rookie drafts? Maybe 1 or 2 guys.
I got 2 for you. Number 1 is going to be Elijah Moore. Everyone's going crazy over Devonta Smith's season, right? Elijah Moore was actually better within the context of his offense, which is pretty absurd. Elijah Moore is also, I believe, a 21-year-old early declare, or a 20-year-old early declare, which is just a whole bunch of good signs. Ultra productive, 21-year-old or 20-year-old early declare, everything that you want on that front. And then he's a little smaller though, but we've seen small players have success in the NFL. He's not low BMI, so take that, BMI Twitter.
I'm just cracking up right here. I had my mic muted, and I was just laughing.
And then the other guy, the guy that's actually my favorite player in the whole class in terms of value is Seth Williams. This guy, he checks every box, and he's like, I forget, he's 6'3", 215 or somewhere around there. He's a monster. He's a throwback to the days of the bully wide receiver. Like, he's Des Bryant all over again. And we still see that type of wide receiver having success. Like, he's Allen Robinson, he's Michael Thomas. He's like this big guy that just wins all the time. I've heard that his draft stock is not going to be very good, though, which is wildly concerning. I thought for sure he was going to be a 2nd-round pick, but I've been hearing he might even go back to school because he's not going to be a day 2 pick. If that's the case, I'm not that into him. I'm very quick to change my mind. The NFL knows better than I do. If they say he's a day 3 pick, he ain't that good. So we'll see. If he ends up on day 2, though, he's going to be probably one of my most known players in this entire class.
Nice. And I love that you said the NFL knows like more than you do, because that's something I always think about. Like, that's why like where players are drafted is like the most, isn't it like the most predictive of like hit rates in general? I'm pretty sure like Paul Howdy has said that or something, but the NFL knows way more than we do. We just all need to accept it. We're playing a game of a game. Like,
it's funny. I did a tweet, I sent a tweet, I don't know, a month or so ago. And it was quite simply, I am both amazed at how good and bad the NFL is at drafting wide receivers, because we see these wide receivers that have no chance to get drafted early, like Henry Ruggs. It doesn't make any sense. You look at their analytical profile and you're like, there's no chance, none. John Ross, another one, no chance, doesn't make any sense. Like, there's all these guys that just, they never had a chance, quite frankly, to begin with. And the NFL picks them early, and it's like, well, but why? And then you look at how good they are at drafting. Anybody who hits is a day 2 pick at worst. Like the Antonio Browns and the Stephon Diggs, those guys are 1 in a million. Like, they are so rare. Everyone that they think is good, or everyone that is good, they get right. But then there's all these other guys that get mixed in there that's like, what the, like, Dante Pettis. How did this guy get drafted in the 2nd round? That doesn't make any sense at all. You look at his profile and there's nothing to like. I mean, it's to be blunt, it's the film side of it. They look good on film. And if they look good on film, that's great. I want players that look good on film, but I also want players that look good analytically. If I can have both, those are the ones I want.
Yeah, and just to sort of finish it out, because we actually didn't talk about like analytics. So from what I've heard, like analytics is to reduce the number of misses. Would you say that that's how you look at it as well? Sort of like to increase your quote hit rate and to make it to where you get the safer prospects?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I don't think it's as good at predicting who is going to hit as it is at predicting who isn't going to hit.
Okay.
It's funny though, because like you see on Twitter or Reddit or wherever, and I'll put out a threat, and then people are like, no, you're wrong because this guy. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, you're right. That guy he doesn't fit with this. You're correct. You're 100% correct. I'm not really worried about that one guy though. I'm more worried about the 15 guys that I didn't pick, and I avoided that guy. Like I missed out on, Michael Thomas, but I dodged like 150 Michael Thomases that were never going to have a chance. So in the long run, I'm way happier.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a great way to finish this. So awesome, had a blast tonight, Drew. Do you have any projects that you're working on that you want everyone to go check out?
Yeah, I got a good project coming up that I think is going to be pretty awesome. I do these prospect threads on Twitter every year. Well, for the last couple of years, just going through kind of my process about what I look at and putting a player through the process. So like Justin Jefferson, he checked this box and this box and this box and this box, and voila, he's a really good prospect. You should get him. So it's my most popular stuff on Twitter by far. This year, I'm putting together a rookie guide. So it's going to be, one publication with the top 50 players, putting them all through the process. And you can see which boxes they checked, what I'm looking at, what context I'm applying to it within how I rank them. Because they're like, I use my grades as black and white, but my rankings aren't black and white. Like it's not like KJ Hamler was a bulletproof prospect last year. I had 4 true bulletproof prospects last year. KJ Hamler was one of them. He wasn't my wide receiver 4. Like I'm not that black and white with my rankings, but I did like his profile. So when it came time to pick him, he was the guy I was picking every time. But so the guide will have the context around the players and how I'm ranking them and all that kind of stuff. It's probably going to come out between the combine and the NFL draft at some point. And it'll be for sale. I think it's going to be pretty cool and hopefully helpful.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll be on the lookout for that. Everybody else should be on the lookout for that. So again, everyone go and follow Drew on Twitter at DFBeanCounter. If you're a new listener, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review to the Snake in the Draft podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you all for tuning in. Let's be snakes this offseason.